कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त
स्वामिन् इति नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौरभक्तवृंद हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे So today we'll be covering the one more section of Bhagavad Gita, chapter 5, principles of liberation in the Supreme, how to attain liberation in this world. That is a basic subject. It covers from 17th verse to 26th verse. Almost 9 verses are there. 9-10 verses are there. All of you can repeat after me the shloka. Tad buddhayas tad atmanas tannishtas tat parayanaha gachanti apunaravrittim jnana nirduta kalmashaha tad buddhayas tad atmanas tannishtas tat parayanaha gachanti apunaravrittim jnana nirduta kalmashaha. So Krishna is saying, when one's intelligence, tad buddhayaha, mind, tad atmanaha, faith and refuge, tan nishtaha, tan parayanaha. When all these things are fixed in the Supreme, then gachanti apunaravritim, jnana nirduta kalmashaha. With this knowledge, one becomes fully cleansed, kalmashaha, from all the misgivings through complete knowledge, jnana nirduta kalmashaha, and gachanti apunaravritim, and he proceeds straight on the path of liberation. So punaha means will come back. Apunaha means which will never come back. That is the perspective. And this means once you go to the Vaikuntha, we will not come back to this world. That is being explained here. So the whole Bhagavad Gita centers around the declaration of Krishna as the Supreme Lord. Because Krishna himself is speaking. And when Vyasadeva is declaring also, wherever Krishna is saying, he says as Bhagavan Uvacha. As the Supreme Lord, he is communicating the entire effect. So for this, there are many verses in Bhagavad Gita itself which claim Krishna's position. And this is a verdict of all the Vedic literatures. They direct us to surrender to Lord. Because Vedesya Sarver Ahameva Vedyaha. In 15.15, Krishna clearly says, by studying all the Vedas, one comes to this conclusion that everybody have to surrender to Krishna. Then in 7th chapter, 7th sloka, Krishna clearly explains his position. Mattah parataram na anyat. There is no parataraha. There is no one beyond me. Na anyat. There is no one beyond me. I am that supreme truth. So that is one point. Then people may say there is personal and impersonal. Again, positioning about this impersonal aspect, Krishna says, Brahmano hi pratishtaham amrutasya avyayasya. This impersonal Brahman is resting on me. Brahmano hi pratishta aham. So again in 14.27, Krishna says impersonal Brahman is supported by him. So in all these ways, Krishna is the supreme reality or Paratattva, who is beyond our imagination, or a truth beyond our understanding. So only one who is fully in Krishna conscious, he becomes cleansed of all the misgivings, and in perfect knowledge in everything, concerning transcendence. Because if you want to approach a clean personality, we should be clean. So when we are going to meet one celebrity, we'll be dressed in the best way. All possible precautions we take. We are very clean. Everything and all we see. So here, Krishna sees everything of our internal things. How our mind is clean, how our intelligence is clean, whether I have complete shelter of Krishna, whether I have complete faith in the Krishna, only then we can connect to him, we can come closer to him. That's why buddhi should be clean, mind should be clean, nishtaha, faith should be clean, parayanaha, our refuge, we should know that we are completely dependent upon him. So a Krishna conscious person can thoroughly understand that there is no duality in Krishna. And equipped with such transcendental knowledge, one can make steady progress on the path of liberation. So duality exists in our mind and exists in this world. There is no duality in the Supreme Lord. Because everything, there is no time perspective in the spiritual world. Past, present and future are there only in this world. In the spiritual world, there is no present, no, people cannot experience, there is no experience of time there. Everything is continued, it goes on. There is no limitation there. So Prabhupada explains about this subject. If we can advance in spiritual knowledge of Krishna consciousness, then tad buddhayaha, by that intelligence, tad atmanaha, being identified with Krishna, tan nishtaha, having faith, good faith, tad parayanaha, and just a surrendered soul to that supreme personality of Godhead, gachanti apunaravratim. Then the result will be, after leaving this body, he is not coming back again. Punaravrati means repeated birth and death is stopped altogether. Gachanti apunaravratim. Gachanti means he goes to that place where from he hasn't got to return back. Gachanti apunaravratim. Punaravratim. Jnana nirduta kalmashaha. So how that position can be attained? Now, jnana nirduta kalmashaha. Kalmashaha means reactions of sinful activities has been washed off completely. How? By that knowledge. By advancement of spiritual knowledge or Krishna consciousness, we are eligible now to enter into the kingdom of God, from where we need not come back again. So this is like an elaboration of the subject what Krishna had explained in that verse. So there is one story which we come across in Ramayana. This is once Lord Ramachandra and they were in that while walking in the South Indian part, they came near Pampa Lake to take bath. So they kept their bows onto the ground. Bows and quivers and everything was taken and they were placing on the ground. So coming out of the water, Lakshmana, when he took out his bow, he found the tip of the bow was stained with blood. So Rama said to him, my dear brother, please look. Perhaps we would have hurt some living entity or creature. Please take a care. So Lakshmana, when he dug the earth and found out a big bullfrog, and it was almost like dying situation. So Rama said to the frog in a sorrow voice, so why don't you make a sound? You always croak. So we could have tried to save you. Most of the times you make sounds and you become a recipient of snake. Now, why did not you make sound? The frog said, oh Lord, when I am attacked by a snake, I croak saying, oh Rama, please save me. But this time I found it was Rama himself who was trying to kill me. So I kept still. I could not pray to anyone. So basically his consciousness, his understanding, he's in a superior level, he's of knowledge. So the whole perspective is like how we can completely surrender to the Lord. The devotees do not expect anything from the Lord. Because it is being touched by Lord Ramachandra, it has got liberation. That is one thing. And because of his sincerity, Lord Ramachandra was very much pleased by their behavior and understanding, by their knowledge, by their practical application of that knowledge. So we have to be very careful. And when we try to implement these principles in our life, we will be tested. And when we proven successful during the test, then we become eligible for going back home, back to God. There is some of the references from Bhagavatam. Nareshu abhikshnasam mad bhavam pumso bhavayato achirat spardashuya tiraskaraha sa ahankara viyantihi. So Nareshu abhikshnam mad bhavam, who is constantly meditating on me, pumsaha, for a person, bhavayato achirat, very soon, he will become pure. How? Spardha, rivalry, asuya, enviousness, tiraskaraha, then abuse, this is like tiraskaraha means rejecting, sa ahankaraha, along with arrogance, viyantihi, along with their causes, false ego, are quickly vanquished. So by completely meditating on the Lord, we become purified of all the unwanted things. Spardha, asuya, ahankara, all these things. Similarly, this is one more quote in third canto spoken by Lord Kapila to his father. Mam atmanam swayam jyotihi sarvabhuta guhasayam atmani evatmana vikshya vishoko abhayam richasi. So mam atmanam swayam jyotihi, I am there in everyone's heart, that intelligence, that Paramatma. So you will always be able to see me. Sarva Bhuta Guhasayam, I am there as a self-effulgent Swayam Jyotihi in everyone's heart, dwelling within the heart of all living entities, Sarva Bhutaha. Atmani Evatmana Vikshaha, one who is able to perceive this. So then Vishokaha, he becomes free from all fear. Abhayam, he acquires eternal life. Rachasi, free from all lamentation. Shokaha means lamentation. Bhayam means fear, he becomes free from fear. Rachasi, and he attains that eternal life, that eternal state of consciousness. So then Krishna further says, who is that person who is able to have that Sarva Bhuta? He is able to see that all living entities in an equal platform. He explained in this verse. All of you can repeat this verse. Vidya Vinaya Sampanne.
Vidya Vinaya Sampanne.
Brahmane Gavihastini.
Brahmane Gavihastini.
Suni Chaiva Swapakecha. Pandita Samadarshinaha.
Pandita Samadarshinaha.
Vidya Vinaya Sampanne.
Vidya Vinaya Sampanne.
Brahmane Gavihastini.
Brahmane Gavihastini.
Suni Chaiva Swapakecha.
Chaiva Savapakecha.
Pandita Samadarshana.
Pandita Samadarshana.
Okay. Vidya Vinaya Sampanne. One who is equipped with knowledge. And Vinaya means gentleness. Brahmane Gavi Hastini. He sees everybody as equal. He sees a learned Brahmana who is equipped with all the qualifications. Gavi, cow. Hastini, an elephant. Suni Chaiva, a dog. Swapakecha, a dog eater. Panditaha Samadarshana. He is known as Pandita, one who is able to have equal vision. This is the explanation. The humble sages, Panditaha, by virtue of true knowledge, sees with equal vision, Samadarshinaha. The learned and gentle Brahmana, Vidya Vinaya Sampanne, Brahmane. Gavi, a cow. Hastini, an elephant. Sunicha, a dog. Swapakecha, and a dog eater. He sees everybody by equal vision. So what is that equal vision? How he is able to perceive everybody in an equal way? A Krishna conscious person does not make distinction between species or caste. The differences of body are meaningless from their viewpoint because they're all outward dress. They're all created, but by default everybody is spirit soul and they are from the eternal world. Because of their karma, they may accept a lower form or a higher form. Like according to one's capacity, one stays in one's house. It may be a 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, bungalow or a villa or anything. It depends upon my capacity of my money and whatever I have. So similarly, here the money perspective is their karma. If they have very good karma, they will have good body. If they have very low karma, very bad karma, they'll have an insignificant body or lower bodies. So on what basis is the equal vision? Because everyone is a spirit soul. And because super soul is present within everyone's body without distinction, he is equally kind to everyone. Either we may be a dog or an insect or a man or a demigod. Paramatma is accompanying us at every level. Because the bodies are only material productions by the association of different modes of material nature, but the soul and super soul are of same spiritual quality. The body deteriorates, the soul never deteriorates. That's why we always feel enthusiastic and young at heart. Because the heart is a place where our soul stays. because our soul is always active. We always would like to be active, but material body may support or may not support to us, but our nature cannot be curtailed by a body. The tendencies all are basically on the soul level. So then people may question, does this mean the soul and super soul are same or equal? No, Krishna says we are equal in quality, but in quantity we are different. Like we are Anu, Lord is Vibhu. Like we are like a drop of ocean water, and Lord is like an ocean. So the tendency is like we are both, the water, drop of water is also salty and the ocean water is also salty. But the proportion of salt present in a drop of water to proportion of salt present in an ocean, that's the difference. So that is the same point. The similarity in the quality of the soul and the super soul does not make them equal in quantity. For the individual soul is present only in the particular body, whereas Paramatma is present in each and every body. This is one qualitative difference. I know something about my body, but Paramatma knows everything about all the other bodies also. So soul and super soul are similar in characteristics, like both are conscious, eternal and blissful. But the capacity wise, Lord is supreme and we are infinitesimal. So when one is actually advanced in spiritual knowledge, he is transcendental, he is in transcendental position. In transcendental position, he is called as Pandita, or a real learned man. And what is that real learned man? How does he visualize this phenomenal world? Lord says, Vidya Vinaya Sampanne Brahmane Gavi Hastini. When one is in the transcendental position, then he sees equally everyone, every living entity. So how is that? Vidya Vinaya Sampanne Brahmane Gavi Hastini. A learned Brahmana, an intelligent man who is very advanced with material, academical knowledge, Vidya Vinaya Sampanne, and he is very gentle and cultured. Such an intelligent man, Vidya Vinaya Sampanne, Brahmane, Gavi, a cow, Hastini, an elephant, Suni means a dog, Swapake means a dog eater. There is a class who eat dog eaters. So Pandita Samadarshana, they are able to see all these people based on their spirit soul, not discriminate on their body external. So there is a similar verse in Bhagavatam which explains in Uddhava Gita. Iti sarvani bhutani mad bhavena mahadyute sabhajayan manyamano jnanam kevalam ashritaha brahmane pukkase stene brahmanye arke spulingake akrure krurake chaiva samadruk pandito matah. So, O most intelligent Uddhava, Mahadyuti, one who cultivates the understanding that I am present in the heart of all living beings, iti sarvani bhutani mad bhavena, and who offers respect to everyone, sabhajayan manyamanaha, he offers respect to everyone, is to be considered actually wise. Jnanam kevalam ashritaha. Such a person sees equally the Brahmana, Brahmanye, Arke, Spulingake, and the outcast, the thief, Akrure, Krurake, Chaiva, and the person who gives charity to the Brahmanas. Samadrak Pandito Mataha. Arke means is like a sun and the tiny sparks, the gentle and the cruel. Akrure, Krure. Arke, Spulingake means the sun, Arke, Spulingake means tiny sparks. So everybody he sees in an equal platform. This is the definition what we get from Bhagavatam. So there was one old person who used to travel from his village to different places. And he is expert at making hats. So he used to go and sell hats and come back to his place. That is his means of livelihood. So once he was passing by a forest. So because of the hot season, he wanted to take a nap under one of the trees. So he left the whole basket of hats by his side. After few hours, he was woken by some sounds. The next thing he realized was all his hats were gone away. He heard some monkeys. They were on the top of the tree. When he looked up, the tree was full of monkeys and they had taken away all his hats. So an idea came to him. He took his hat and threw it away on the floor. And monkeys do that too. So he finally managed to get all the hats back. So first he started mimicking the monkeys. Then they started reciprocating to him. Finally, when he threw his hat, they all also threw their hat. So generally what we learn from our superiors, we try to practice that. So 50 years later, his grandson also became a hat seller. So he heard the story from his grandfather. So one day, like his grandfather, he was passing through the same forest. So because it was a summer season, he also took under the same tree nap, and he left all the hats on the floor. When he woke up and realized all his hats were also gone, then he realized that all the monkeys had taken away all his hats. He remembered the words of his grandfather. Then he started scratching. He said the monkeys were following him. Then he was making funny faces. They were following him. Then he took down his hat and he was fanning himself again. The monkeys followed him. Now he became convinced of his grandfather's idea. Then he threw away his hat onto the floor. But this time, to the surprise, the monkeys did not throw away their hats. And one of the monkeys came down, grabbed the hat on the floor, came to him, gave him a tight slap and said, "You think only you have your grandfather? We don't have our grandfather or what?" So we should not understand any person, whether they are feeble or weak, or never underestimate anyone. We should not take for granted. So the whole, because we all learn by experience, and spiritual life is such a way that we get this opportunity and we practice by hearing. So we should be very careful. How do we deal with this world? This is the perspective. Okay, somebody was raising a hand to ask for a question. Because it was in between, I could not. Anybody has any doubts here? Shall I proceed?
Prabhu, one question, Prabhu.
Yes, please.
Actually, Devatas will go to the Vaikuntha to meet the Vishnu.
Okay.
Whether they go to Vaikuntha, they will not come back to the material world, Prabhu. Whether they will go to real Vaikuntha or whatever.
Vaikuntha is real. They go up to the Kshira Sagara. They cannot enter into the place where the Lord is dwelling.
Okay.
They will be on the opposite side of the river. The other side is the Vaikuntha where Lord stays.
Okay.
They go there and they offer their prayers in the form of Purusha Shukta. Then Lord will, sometimes Lord may be visible, and most of the times Lord will not be visible. He will pass on the message to the heart of Brahma, what they are supposed to do. And Brahma will further communicate that knowledge to all the Devatas there, and they proceed to their respective duties. This is what actually happens.
They will meet only Kshirodaya Sai Vishnu?
That most of the times they will not be able to see the Lord. That light effulgence, it is so much that very few people who are only pure devotees can see that beyond that light, the personality of Godhead.
Whether they will meet only Kshirodaya Sai Vishnu, wherever Dhroloka or some...
Yes.
Okay. Further, they will not go. Vaikuntha Loka, real Vaikuntha Loka, they will not go. Only that Dhroloka...
Dhroloka also up to the entrance. They are not going inside the Vaikuntha.
Yes. Even 4 Kumaras also will not enter the Vaikuntha.
You see, if you read that Bhagavatam pastime, at the 7th door, the event happened.
Yes. Even so, they will not enter the Vaikuntha.
They will not enter the Vaikuntha. Lord came up to the door. So they did not enter into Vaikuntha.
That's why they come back again to material world.
But after that, they became pure devotees. They are qualified to enter anywhere and everywhere like Narada Muni.
Okay.
But the entire event happened at the entrance of Vaikuntha.
Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
Thank you. All of you can repeat this verse. Ihaiva tair jitaḥ sargo.
ihaiva tair jitaḥ sargo.
Yesham samye stitam manaha.
Yesham samye maha.
Nirdosham hi samam brahma.
Nirdosham hi samam brahma.
Tasmad brahmani te stitaha. Ihaiva tair jitaḥ sargo.
Sargo.
Yesham samye stitam manaha. Nirdosham hi samam brahma. Tasmad brahmani te stitaha. So for those minds who are established in sameness and equanimity, samye stitah manaha. Samya means equality, and stita means which are established in equanimity and sameness. Ihaiva tair jitaḥ sargo. He has conquered the conditions of birth and death. Jitaḥ means one who has conquered. Sargaha means birth and death. Nirdosham hi samam Brahma. They are with flawless. Nirdosham, like Brahman, samam Brahma. They are equivalent to Brahman. And thus, tasmat Brahmanite sitaha. They are already situated in Brahman. So, whose minds are established in sameness and equanimity? Esham stamye stitam manaha. Ihaiva tair jitaḥ sargaha. They are almost like they have conquered the conditions of birth and death. This is the example. This is the translation. So, what does equanimity of mind means? So, it is a sign of self-realization, elevated to the stage through realization of the self, liberated from conditional life, and at the end will enter into the spiritual world after his death. So, when does a living entity become flawless like the Lord? Because Lord is flawless because he is without attraction or hatred, without duality. When the living entity comes to the stage of without attraction or hatred, he becomes flawless. For those who have actually attained that stage, should be considered to have conquered the material conditions, specifically birth and death. So there was one person by name Holman Hunt who had painted a picture of Jesus Christ standing in a garden at midnight, holding on a lantern in one hand, and with the other he was knocking on a door. Then a friend of an artist asked him, Mr. Holman, you have made a mistake. The door you have painted does not have a handle. The artist said, it's not a mistake, for the door is the human heart. It can only open from inside. Because we have to open the door and let Lord come inside. So this is the truth. He's been standing outside the heart and knocking on the door and asking to let him in. So we should realize that, and we should open the door and we should let Lord accept the portion. Because what is happening is our heart became a store place or dump yard for all unwanted things. Over a period of time, we have accumulated many things and we have destroyed the entire place of the heart. It became uncongeniable for the Lord to stay there. So we have to cleanse the heart. We have to clean it up completely. Like when a big man is coming to stay in our house, we do Maha cleaning and we make it very spick and span. So similarly, our heart should be that clean. So then the Lord can stay and we will be able to perceive the Lord and we will be able to experience that relationship with the Lord. So that is the perspective what Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is explaining to us. So then further continuation. Please repeat the verse. Na prahirshyet priyam prapya.
Na praharshet priyam prapya.
Nodvijet prapya cha priyam.
Nodvijet prapya cha priyam.
Sthira buddhir asammodo.
Buddhir asammodo.
Brahmavid brahmani sitaha.
Brahmavid brahmani sitaha.
Na prahirshyet priyam prapya.
Praharshet priyam prapya.
Nodvijet prapya cha priyam.
Nodvijet prapya cha priyam.
Sthira buddhir asammodo.
Buddhir asammodo.
Brahmavid brahmani sitaha.
Brahmavid brahmani sitaha.
So in the last verse, Krishna had said, a person who is situated in Brahman. Now, how do you realize what are his symptoms or characteristics of a person who is situated in Brahman is explained in this verse. Na prashishyet, he did not rejoice. Priyam prapya, on achieving something favorable. Na udvijet, or he becomes agitated. Prapya cha apriyam, when something unpleasant happens to him. Sthira buddhihi, his consciousness is his intelligence, sthira buddhihi, self-restraint intelligent. Asam mudaha, mudaha means one who is bewildered, or asam mudaha means one who is not bewildered. Brahmavit, one who is perfectly knows the supreme. Brahmani sitaha, is perfectly situated in transcendence. A person who neither rejoices upon achieving something pleasant, na prahishyet priyam prapya, nor laments upon obtaining something unpleasant. No dvijay prapya chapriyam, who is self-intelligent, sthira buddhihi, who is unbewildered, asammudaha, and who knows the signs of God, Brahmavit, is already situated in transcendence. Brahmani sthitaha. So he is not illusioned by the false identification of the body within the true self. How? Because he perfectly knows that he is not the body, but he is a fragmental portion of the Lord. Atma is an mamaivamsho jivaloke. You are my amsha. So then that way we are parts and parcels of the Lord. That is explained in 15th chapter. Then what is this sthira buddhihi or self-effulgence? Self-intelligence. That is to have steadiness of mind. Do not get carried away by happiness or distress. Basically this duality. Do not respond to this duality. And do not get carried away by this bodily concept of life. Do not become aggrieved because of this body. Then this knowledge elevates him to the point of knowing the complete science of absolute truth. Brahmavit. He becomes qualified to understand this knowledge. Then what is this Brahman realization? To know one's constitutional position perfectly well, without falsely trying to become one with the Supreme in all respects, is Brahman realization or self-realization. To know who are we, who is Lord, what is our relationship, and in that perfect relationship when we execute our duties, that is called as self-realization. So Prabhupada explains about this in one lecture. Na prahrichyet priyam prapya. So suppose someone is in the bodily conception of life or in life of Krishna consciousness, suddenly receives hundreds of millions of dollars. In one moment he is a poor man, then suddenly he becomes a wealthy man. There was a case in Calcutta. A groom and his master both bought lottery tickets. The master did not win anything, but the groom won some 10 lakhs of rupees or some enormous amount. When his master told him he had won the lottery, he had a heart attack and died. So a devotee does not become too happy. He reckons, by Krishna's case, I have this. Let me engage it in Krishna's service. He has dedicated his life. He does not claim anything, knowing that everything is Krishna's. So if something favorable is achieved, he engages it in the service of the Lord. Na prashruchyet priyam prapya, that is his happiness. Next, all of you can repeat again. Bahya sparsheshu asaktatma.
Bahya sparsheshu asastamma.
Vindati atmani yat sukam.
Yati atmani yat sukam.
Sabrahma yoga yuktatma.
Yoga yuktatma.
Sukam akshayam asnute.
Sukam akshayam asnute.
Bahya sparsheshu asaktatma.
Bahya sparsheshu asatma.
Vindati atmani yat sukam.
Yati atmani yat sukam.
Sabrahma yoga yuktatma.
Yoga yuktatma.
Sukam akshayam asnute.
Akshaya asnute.
So further symptoms are revealed here. Bahya sparsheshu asaktatma. Such a liberated person is not attracted to material sense pleasure. Bahya sparsha. Asakta atma. Asakta atma he means one who is renounced from this. Vindati atmani yatshukam. He is enjoying this pleasure within. Atmani yatshukam. Vindati. He is enjoying within. Sa Brahma yoga yuktatma. In this way he is a self-realized person. Sukam akshayam asnati. He enjoys unlimited happiness. Because Brahma yoga yuktatma, for he concentrates on the Supreme. By yoga, he is concentrating on the Brahman. That's why he is able to enjoy. Sukam akshayam asnute. Akshaya means which will diminish. Akshaya means which is unlimited. So what is that Brahma yoga state? Being absorbed in Krishna consciousness, one loses complete taste for material sense pleasure altogether. That's quoting by verse from Yamunacharya. Yadavadi mama cheta Krishna padara vinde navanava rasa dhamyatam navanava rasa dhamnuyadyata ramtumasi tadavadi batinari sangame sparyamane bhavati mukhavikaraha sushti nishtivanancha. He says, since I have been engaged in the transcendental loving service of Krishna, relishing ever new pleasure in him, whenever I think of sex pleasure. I spit at the thought and my lips curl with distaste. So this is the explanation we hear from Yamunacharya. If anything insignificant it becomes other than pleasure of the Lord. Okay. Then what is the test in spiritual realization? A Krishna conscious person can work with great vigor without sex pleasure. And the sex pleasure is actually the highest material pleasure in this world, and spiritual realization and sex pleasure go ill together. So we have to be very careful not to get into that dimension. So, but why is a Krishna conscious person not attracted to any kind of the sense pleasure? Because he is a liberated soul. He does not consider anything to this bodily concept or anything of this duality of this world. That's why he's not attracted to anything of this material world. So Prabhupada explains in one lecture. You have heard about Krishna's rasa dance. This is true. On the spiritual platform, happiness is fully realized. Sa Brahma Yoga Yukta Atma Sukham Akshayam Asnute. Akshayam means it does not pass away. Here in this world, all happiness, this so-called happiness, is flickering. It comes and goes. One who is transcendentally situated does not look for happiness or distress because he knows it has appeared and it will go. So there is no need to be disturbed in distress. It is like wonderful snowfall in your country. We are expecting snow. Last year there was snow. It has melted away and will come again this winter. So anything of this world will come and go. So we should not be disturbed by it. So in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna advised Arjuna, Matra Sparshas tu Kaunteya. These things come and go. Simply tolerate. Shitoshna Sukadukadaha. Agama Payana Nitya. Stam Titikshvashva Bharata. Titikshva means tolerate. That is the easy way how you can handle these situations. So explaining what is the nature of this material happiness. In this verse, Krishna explains. Please repeat the verse. Yehi samsparshaja bhoga.
Yehi samsparshaja
Boga.
Dukkha yonaya evate.
Dukkha yonaya evate.
Adyantavanta kaunteya.
Avanta Kaunteya.
Nateshu ramate buddha.
Nateshu ramate buddha.
Yehi samsparshaja bhoga.
Yehi samsparshaja boga.
Dukkha yonaya evate.
Dukkha yonaya
Onaja evate.
Adyantavanta kaunteya.
Antavanta Kaunteya.
Nateshu ramate buddha.
Nateshu ramate buddha.
So Krishna is saying, Yehi samsparshaja bhoga. One who is trying to have this happiness by association with the material senses, samsparshaja, bhogaha, enjoyment. Dukkha yonaya evate. It is it's a source of misery. Dukkha yonaya. Adi antavanta kaunteya. That happiness or everything, it says adi, beginning, antavanta, it has end. O Arjuna. Nateshu ramate buddha. Wise man does not delight in them. So if you know the happiness is limited for half an hour or 1 hour, why will you go into that happiness by expending so much amount? That is the perspective here. An intelligent person does not take part in the source of misery, dukkha yona evate, which is due to contact with the material senses. Samsparshaja bhoga. O son of Kunti, Kaunteya, such pleasures have a beginning, adi, and an end, antavantaha. So the wise man, Buddha, does not delight in them. Nateshu ramate. This is what is explained here. So why are material sense pleasures temporary? Because they are in contact with the temporary body, their pleasures are also limited. Because as soon as this body ends, the pleasure connected with this body is finished. So that's why the true yogis, they are not interested in sense pleasures. Like after enjoying the transcendental happiness, a liberated soul is not attracted to these false pleasures. Quoting from a verse from Padma Purana, Ramante yogino anante satyananda chidatmani iti rama pada nasho param brahma abhidiyate. The yogis, they derive unlimited pleasure. Ramante yogino anante. That pleasure is unlimited. And it is satyananda, that it is true happiness. And chidatmani, into the absolute truth. Iti Rama Pade Nashav. By chanting the holy name of Rama, that he is that personality, Param Brahma Abhidiyate. He is that personality through whom that perfect happiness comes, is Lord Ramchandra. So similarly in Bhagavatam also it says that happiness, what we are aspiring, is available for hawks and dogs and everybody. So why are we hankering like them? This material life is tapo divyam, is meant for tapasya. So do not run behind something which is available for animals also. So the sense pleasures becomes the cause of continuous material existence. Kanduya ena karayor iha dukkha dukkam. The sense pleasures are like itching sensation. Whenever you feel itching, you would like to rub there. So you feel a pleasure. But that pleasure after some time will turn into a wound there. So anything about this material world is, initially we may feel pleasure, at the end it becomes a big wound. So the more the one is addicted, the more one becomes entrapped by material miseries. That is the principle here. Like Prabhupada explains in one lecture. Ehi samsparshaja bhogaha. Enjoyment which is derived from senses brings only misery. Dukkha yonayaha. Means that in the future I'll have to suffer for that. Therefore, sense control is essential. Material happiness is derived from the senses, and it is clearly stated here that dukkha yonayaha, they are the mother of all miseries. So next, all of you can repeat the verse. Shaknoti ihaiva yashodum.
Shaknoti ihaiva yashodam.
Praksharira vimokshanat.
Praksharira vimoksanat.
Kama krododbhavam vegam.
Kamakrodvavam vegam.
Sayuktaha sasuki naraha.
Sasuki naraha.
Shaknoti ihaiva yashodum.
Ihaiva yashodam.
Praksharira vimokshanat.
Praksharira vimoksanat.
Kama krododbhavam vegam.
Kamakrodvavam vegam.
Sayuktaha sasuki naraha.
Sasuki naraha.
So ihaiva sharira vimokshanat. When one is about to quit this body, when he is before giving up this present body, if one is able to tolerate the urges of the material senses, shaknoti iva yashodam kama krodha udbhavam, the forces of desire and anger, vegam, they are the forces. Then sayuktaha sasuki naraha. So he is happy and situated in this world. He is well situated and he is happy in this world. So what are the forces of the material senses? The forces of talk, the forces of anger, the forces of the mind, the forces of the stomach, the forces of the genitals, and the forces of the tongue. Then what happens if you are able to control all these 6 forces? One becomes a Goswami. One is able to control his senses and mind. So what is the duty of a transcendentalist? To control this desire and anger. Kama, krodha. So what happens when these material desires are unsatiated? So they generate anger. One's mind, eyes and chest becomes agitated, red, and they react. So that's how the anger takes its action. So in one lecture, Prabhupada explains. The yoga practice means one should be tolerant. According to their practice, they enter deep water in winter and meditate. In summer, they sit down in the midst of fires and meditate. So these are the processes to learn tolerance. Fortunately, we do not have to do all these things. Instead, we chant in a nice room like this with the deities of Jagannatha and derive 1,000 times greater benefit than that can be obtained from those practices. It would be very difficult for most people to imitate those practices. It may be possible for 1 or 2 persons, but it cannot be practiced on a mass scale. But this practice of self-realization can be done by anyone and everyone, even by children. And further, one more lecture Prabhupada says, suppose a man is suffering from some disease and the doctor tells him to avoid solid food. Because one is accustomed to eating solid food, he wants to eat solid food. However, if he can obey the doctor, he will be cured very easily. Similarly, sense perception, sense pleasure is reserved for us in our spiritual life. That is actual sense pleasure. Here we have some having same sense pleasure artificially through this body. So we have to avoid sense pleasure as much as possible. So Krishna advises us to tolerate the urge of sense pleasure, and we have to order our life so that we can tolerate. That will give us advancement in spiritual life, and when we are able to achieve the spiritual plane, the enjoyment is unending, unlimited. So akshayam asnute, that is the same thing. Then Krishna further explains what is his pleasure of the spirit soul in his realization. We'll explain that higher taste. All of you can repeat this verse. Yo antasuko antararamas
Yo antasuko
Antasuko
antaramas.
tata antarjyotirevaya
Tata
Tata Antarjyotirmaya
sayogi brahma nirvanam
Sayogi Brahma
Nirvanam
brahma bhuto adhigacchati.
Brahma Bhuto
Bhuto Adhigacchati.
Yo antasuko antararamas
Yo antasuko
Antararamas
tata antarjyotirevaya
Tata
Jyotirvevaya
sayogi brahma nirvanam
Sayogi Brahma
Nirvanam
brahma bhuto adhigacchati.
Brahma Bhuto
Bhuto Adhigacchati.
So antasukha, one whose happiness is within, antararamaha, one who is active within, tata antarjyotirevacha, and who is rejoices within, and whose aim is inward, evayaha sayogi brahma nirvanam, he is actually the perfect mystic. Brahma bhuto adhigacchati, and he is liberated in the supreme, and ultimately he attains that supreme. So what is this Brahma bhuta state? A liberated person enjoys happiness within by factual experience. By relishing the happiness within, he is able to overcome the urges from external engagements. And he no longer desires external material happiness. This is completely within. So he is able to experience from within. So one who is aspiring after that transcendental happiness, which is called as Brahma Sukha, Anta Sukha, that Brahma Sukha is within. That Brahma Sukha is not without. Antararamaha, he is happy and satisfied by enjoying within. Tata Antar Jyotirevaha, one who is trying to find out that Brahma Jyoti, the effulgence of Brahman within. Sayogi Brahma Nirvanam, that yogi is already situated in Brahman. Nirvana means ending all this material contamination. Brahma Bhuto Adhikachati, he becomes a realized soul, or Brahma Antaha, and he is able to achieve that spiritual world. So how simple we can understand by practical, and Prabhupada explains in further lecture. Within means self-satisfied. Bhakti. How this process can give you that understanding within? How? One may question, how is this possible within? Yes, it is possible. The example is given by Goswamis. Just like a hungry man, he wants some food. He is demanding some food. And if you give him nice food, he eats. And with each morsel of food, he realizes within that I am eating, I am getting strength, I am satisfied. So is it not? Similarly, you begin this Krishna consciousness chanting. You will feel yourself, yes, I am doing something. Yes, I am eating something. Yes, I am getting spiritual strength. So it is not a fact. Actually, if somebody is disturbed, then it is to be understood that his disease is little more acute. Otherwise, in normal condition, if he chants and follows the regulation, he will feel, yes, I am doing something, I am getting something, I am gaining that strength. I am getting satisfaction. I am feeling spiritually advancing. These things will manifest automatically simply by chanting. So finally, again, Krishna gives more symptoms of person who is seeking satisfaction within. All of you can repeat. Labante Brahma Nirvanam.
Labante
Brahma Nirvanam.
Rushayaha Kshina Kalmashaha.
Yakshina Kalmashaha.
Chinnadvaida Yatatmanaha.
Dvaida Yatatmaha.
Sarva Bhuta Hite Rataha.
Hiteraha.
Labante Brahma Nirvanam.
Labante
Brahma Nirvanam.
Rushayaha Kshina Kalmashaha.
Yakshina Kalmashaha.
Chinnadvaida Yatatmanaha.
Dvaida Yatatmanaha.
Sarva Bhuta Hite Rataha.
Bhuta Hiterata.
So those who are beyond the dualities that arise from doubts, Chinnadvaitaha, whose minds are engaged within Yatatmanaha, and who are always busy working for welfare of all living beings, sarvabhuta hite rataha, and those who are free from all sins, rushayaha kshina kalmashaha, achieve liberation in the Supreme, labante brahma nirvanam. So what is the highest welfare work? The suffering of humanity are due to the forgetfulness of the Lord Krishna. So reviving our consciousness is the highest welfare activity. So one cannot be engaged in first class welfare work without being liberated in the Supreme. So what is the improper understanding of these welfare activities? Physical welfare or temporary relief of external body and mind are not satisfactory. The real cause of one's difficulties is the hard struggle for life may be found in one's forgetfulness of his relationship with the Supreme Lord. So like Prabhupada explains in this one lecture, you have a very good car, but the driver is a madman. You have a good car, but the driver is a madman and he is creating disaster. And you psychiatrists are going to cure it. You never say that the driver is bad. Change him or just educate him. Then there will be no disaster. But you are taking your fees and giving some repairing in the car. But you do not know what is the original cause of disaster due to the bad driver. So our propaganda is to give the bad driver nice knowledge so that he can drive the car to Vaikuntha. That is our position. And these rascals, materialists, they are simply painting the body of the car. And are they bothered of the driver? Let him starve. That's all. All these medical men, psychiatrists, they are simply painting the body of the car. That's all. Means we are focusing on the body. We are not focusing on that soul who is there within the body. He is starving. So the last verse of this today's subject. Kama krodha vimuktanam.
Kama krodha vimuktanam.
Yatinam yata chetasam.
Yatinam yata chestanam.
Abhito brahma nirvanam.
Abhito brahma nirvanam.
Vartate viditatmanam.
Vartate
Viditatmanam.
Kama krodha vimuktanam.
Kama
Krodha vimuktanam.
Yatinam yata chetasam.
Yatinam yata chetasmanam.
Abhito brahma nirvanam.
Abhito brahma nirvanam.
Vartate viditatmanam.
Vartate viditatmanam.
So one who is free from anger, desire, kama krodha vimuktanam, yatinam yatachayasasam, one who are self-realized, self-disciplined, and abhito brahma nirvana, one who are constantly endeavoring for perfection, vartate viditatmanam, are assured of liberation, the Supreme, in the very near future. Abhito brahma nirvana. Abhito means very near. They will be able to achieve the Supreme Lord. So of the saintly persons who are constantly engaged in striving for salvation, who is the best? So a Krishna consciousness person is the best of all. Quoting from 4th canto by Prithu Maharaj, Yat pada pankaja palasa vilasa bhaktya. By worshipping the Supreme Lord, one can control the forces of the senses and uproot the deep-grown desire for fruitive activities. So the analogy of meditation is the fish brings up its offspring simply by looking at them. The tortoise brings up its offspring simply by meditation. The eggs are laid in the land and tortoise meditates on the eggs while it in the water. Similarly, a devotee in Krishna consciousness, although far away from the Lord's abode, can elevate himself to the abode simply by thinking of him constantly by engagement in Krishna consciousness. And what is this Brahma Nirvana state? Absence of material miseries due to being constantly immersed in the Supreme. This is called as Brahma Nirvana. So any questions? So this is a simple subject, but to practice it, it will take time. We require all this understanding for us to advance. So in the guidance of devotees, in the guidance of acharyas, when we practice, we will become perfect, and very soon, assured, as explained by Krishna, we will be able to go back home, back to God. So if there are no doubts, we'll close for the day. Thank you. Hare Krishna. We'll again meet in the next week for further verses. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare
Hare Krishna.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.